I'm trying to make it easy on you. I don't know if we are the closer or the main event. The good news is that everybody stuck around. Certainly we want to extend our thanks to the UAW for having the event, as well as the host of the Bellefontaine Examiner. It's an opportunity for us to get a chance to talk to you. Obviously, after some 40 years in the community, I can't tell you all about me in 2 minutes. So I'll tell you a couple of things that are important to me. My wife, Patty, back there of 48 years is important to me. My 2 sons are important to me, and then my 2 grandchildren are important to me. I've had the privilege of living and working in this community my entire life. I'm a 5th generation in my family. This is my home, and so my service to this community is driven by the fact that it is my home, and I like it very much. It would be easy for me to have retired. I did retire from the bench, but I still think I have something else to offer to my community. I've been in private practice for 34 years. That practice was a business of my own that I started. I worked second shift in a local factory when I started that business because I had a family to feed. So I understand about jobs and work. I had the privilege during that 34 years of representing businesses and families and farmers and just the whole range of the community. And you gave me the opportunity to be involved in some of the most important job creation events that happen in this county. And job creation, job retention is probably one of the most important jobs here for a state rep. The hospital, the 2 Honda plants, the Bellefontaine Airport. We were involved in the Indian Lake School expansion. We've had the privilege of working with community leaders and community members in all of those kind of functions. We'll get a chance to talk about that again in a little bit, because I can see the timer's about to give me a ding. So she doesn't have to use her hook. We'll give it a stop. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Robert Luckey, and tonight I ask you for your vote and your consideration. And I want to take a few minutes to thank you for taking the time to come and learn about the issues, and thank you to our event hosts and sponsors. I've lived my entire life in West Central Ohio, and I want for my 4 children and for all of us and for future generations to have those kind of great opportunities I always had here in West Central Ohio. A place where there are jobs available, a place where traditional values and Christian ideas matter, a place where you can still work hard and get a fair day's pay for a fair day's work. And I'm fighting to protect those opportunities. It's Ohio's average age is rapidly increasing, and in fact more than nearly any other state. And that's because there aren't a lot of opportunities for the next generation. And if we're going to preserve Ohio, we need to make a better, stronger Ohio and create more opportunities. I grew up, as I said, in West Central Ohio. My parents worked and had a small Christmas tree farm. I worked there, and in school I was very active in my community, active in my school. I worked after school at a place called Cook's Turkey Farm in New Knoxville, and spent a lot of years working 2 jobs to take care of my wife and 4 kids, and it's not a complaint. I know many people have had to do that, but it's important because you understand those challenges. Started my own business, did it with my own money, did it with nothing but my own savings and my own hard work and my own ability. And from there I learned a lot about the challenges businesses are facing. Also, I spent a lot of time active in my community, as has my wife, in many organizations and many groups. And part of it has been my political involvement. It's not something I've done for profession or pay, but I just tried to spend time when I could to help elect good people. Sometimes we won and sometimes we lost, but I didn't stop fighting. I didn't stop fighting for the things I thought was right. My name's Robert Luckey, and thank you.
My name is Nino Vitale. I thank the host for having this. Voting is very important to me. I am only the 2nd generation in this country. I come from Italian immigrants. I grew up with a grandfather who was used to point his finger at me and drag me to the polls and say, "You have no idea how important it is. I grew up with a man named Mussolini who wouldn't let us do anything." And he considers himself an escapee from Italy and very proud of the fact that he was able to bring his family to this country. Just to fast forward a little bit, when I was 11, I got in some trouble, and my father worked at a factory and decided that I was going to spend the next 3 Saturdays working and cleaning the restrooms. So the first Saturday I spent from 6 to 12:30 crying and cleaning the restrooms. But he taught me a valuable lesson in that the second Saturday he gave me a little bit of cash, and he said, "That's for last week." And I said, "Wow, interesting." Well, I ended up there till I was 17, working on the line. I was glad when I graduated from the restroom duty. Worked at the in the back in shipping when I was old enough to drive. And I ended up at Ohio State. I made the marching band. A buddy of mine made me a bet. None of us had ever gone to college before in my family. And so that's kind of what brought me to Central Ohio. But just to give you 4 quick points that I want to discuss. My general philosophy is 3 C's: Christian, constitutional, conservative. That's who I am. And what I've spent my time doing is I'm an NRA instructor. The Second Amendment and the Constitution is very important to me. My son, who's sitting there in the blue, is Ohio's youngest NRA apprentice instructor. Second, I'm a pro-life board member and currently on the board of the Sycamore Pregnancy House. We are strong supporters of life and family, and I've been working in that movement for almost 10 years. Private business guy. I've worked for companies, multinationals like Apple Computer, Frigidaire. I worked over at Dave Thomas and Wendy's. And now I'm working for the family business in Urbana, Ohio. We make air brake, heavy vehicle air brake trucks. So last, I went to Mom in January and told her we have a bill of $9.7 million, and we're also suing Obamacare. So thank you very much.
All right, the first question, which Mr. Chamberlain, you'll get the opportunity to answer first. Discuss your philosophy on state spending, including your opinion on local government funding, what programs are paramount, and what the best method of funding those would be.
A multiple choice question. The challenges that we have faced, and you've given me the opportunity to face these challenges as a local elected official, both as a family court judge, the same thing that the 4 candidates were up here before, as a county prosecutor, and I've served 3 different villages. Local government funding you've heard a lot of talk about, but there doesn't seem to be any real measure to show you how that's impacted. I want to give you an example right here in Logan County, one small village, Russellvania. They went from 2007, a budget of $148,000 to 2013 budget revenues of $95,000. Of that 52% reduction, 39% was a reduction in local government funds and a reduction in personal property tax reimbursement and tangible personal property tax reimbursement. In the state of Ohio, we have raised the budget in the state of Ohio to $63 billion. That's gone up in 15 years from some $20 billion. The jobs at the state level have gone up by 3,100 jobs. Local jobs have gone down by 7,100 jobs. That's in the last report, the last fall that was out in the County Commissioners Association report. So the impact here is that we've seen a growth at the state level and we've seen a reduction at the local level. I'm a local government guy. I think the best government is that closest to the people it serves because we know what the community needs. And we have continued to expand the state government, I believe, at the expense of local government. I can't tell you I can go to Columbus and restore all those local government monies, but I can tell you I go with the knowledge and the understanding of what the impact is on the local community when we do those kind of things. We take away the 10% reimbursement, we take away the 10% rollback, we took away the 2.5% homestead exemption. Those all have huge financial impact on the community. Thank you.
So certainly the budget is an important issue, and I have a very detailed understanding of it. I spent a lot of time looking it over. I've spent a lot of time in various organizations and spent a lot of time in my business working with businesses and companies looking at their financial picture. It's a big part of what I did. So looking at that, to clarify a couple of things, when we talk about the state budget, you hear a lot of numbers. The budget does have what's called the biannual budget. It's a 2-year budget. They also break it down on how much they spend per year. So it's important to keep in mind when we talk about an increase from maybe 20 billion to 63, it's actually an increase from that to actually 32 annually. So we just need to use correct numbers. So that's important to understand. So what I've made a commitment to is when I looked at understanding the budget, we cannot balance the budget at the state level by taking money away from the local governments. Local government is an essential part of what we do to create and grow jobs in our local communities, and it's very, very wrong for the state government to balance their budget by taking away much needed funds from your local communities and their abilities. That being said, anytime we have a chance to streamline and shrink government, I absolutely support that. I have a very detailed, very specific job plan, economic plan, budget plan, and to give you a couple of brief highlights, I know we're short on time, and again, I want to be clear that this is reasonably achievable goals. I'm not making a bunch of magical, outlandish comments of things I wish we could do. These are detailed, doable things. We're going to turn the state spending back to what their budget previously was, plus eliminate some duplicate things that I know are there from my experience in business ownership, and that money that we're going to eliminate state level spending is how we're going to pay for tax cuts that we can give you. Let's get that sales tax back to the low amount that it was. Let's return that income tax money to you instead of making you pay it. It's good for the jobs, it's good for the economy, it puts more money in the economy, and most importantly, the government should take as little money from you as they can. It's your money, and I want to help you keep it. Thank you.
I'm a constitutional conservative, and as a conservative, I believe that the smallest and most local form of government is the family. And as we raise things up the food chain, we go to local government, then we go to state government, we go to federal government, we become less and less served by the government. The government is there to serve us as the people and serve us as a family. And I think the folly that we've gotten into is we made this agreement years ago with the state government that they would collect our taxes and then they would promise to send them back to the local governments. And if you elect me to the state legislature, I can assure you I'm not interested in going there because I want to pass all kinds of legislation. I'm going there to decentralize our state government, which is starting to look and feel like the federal government. So what I will do is make every attempt to get rid of that folly. And there's an old adage from farmers, which is raise it local and eat it local. I've heard this a lot, and I'm kind of stealing this from them. But I think we should raise the money local, and keep it local. If we don't ever send it to the state, they can't take our money in the first place. Thank you.
Mr. Luckey, you'll be first. What do you believe needs to be done to draw new business to Ohio and retain existing ones? How would you use your position as state representative to entice new businesses to locate in Logan, Champaign, and Shelby counties?
I think this is a great and important question, and it directly goes into what I talked about my plan. I have detailed and specific ways that we're going to do this. What do businesses want? A big part of what they want is the kind of workforce they need. And there are a lot of reasons why we've made some bad choices in state level education, including Common Core, which we need to repeal. But another thing we need to do is stop this one-size-fits-all approach. And so we need to allow education options for skilled labor, for vocational education, for agriculture, as well as for college prep. That's a big part of it. The other thing is businesses want to be profitable. That was my experience in working in business and working with business and in the Christian Business Network and the Chamber of Commerce. And what I learned from there was the more we tax businesses, the less likely they are to come. So keeping taxes low is important because not only will it bring jobs here, but it helps stimulate the economy because you'll have more money. And the more money we have to spend, the more money we have moving in the economy. Another part of that plan is allowing people fair access to jobs. We need to give people the opportunity to work. That's why we have to allow Ohio to become a right-to-work state. That's a big, important thing that we need to do. And we have to streamline and eliminate duplicate regulations. As I mentioned before, when I had a business, it was unfair to me, my clients, my employees, and it was hindering economic growth, all these duplicate regulations. And so I think that the economic issues and the education issues in some ways overlap. And by doing that, will create those opportunities to get businesses here. And I encourage people in the community, leaders, to do some of the things I've done and get involved in many great community organizations. That way there are great opportunities, great culture, and great things for the youth to do, for all of us to do, for every generation to do, and to preserve our communities that we've spent so much time living in. Thank you.
We have 300 Ohioans that work at our facility, which affects about 1,200 individual families, 1,200 people. And one of the things that, there's 3 points that we see frequently. One is folks can't pass the drug test. We have jobs available, but they can't get past the drug test. We can't have folks working for us and operating a 60-ton press. They could hurt themselves or hurt other people that they're working with. So the way you fix the drug problem is you fix the family. That's a moral issue. We spend more and more government money, and we keep reaching into your pockets and my pocket to fix that problem. And the drug problem continues to get worse and worse because the family keeps breaking apart. The second issue that we have a big problem with is 44% of every dollar that we make goes somewhere else. We don't get to keep it to reinvest in our business. And in Mexico, it's 8%. Many of our customers claim they're made in the USA, and when I'm shipping 80% of our product over the border to Canada or Mexico, I'm not sure I consider that made in the USA anymore. And so that's a huge problem that we have. Another issue is we need lower taxes. We have to stop coming up with wonderful programs when those of us in the private sector aren't growing as fast as our own government is growing. And we don't know what their next regulation is going to be. And as I said earlier, I'm not interested in going to the state and passing more laws. I'm interested in deregulating Ohio and making it more business friendly. The last thing I would say is we have to stop picking winners and losers with taxpayer money. When we take our taxpayer dollars and put them into a business, we never know if that business is truly profitable. And I'll just give you a quick story. We're putting on a 15,000 square foot addition to our company right now, and we didn't ask for a tax abatement. We didn't ask for any freebies. We're just doing it. We applied for our permits, and we're just building it because we want to grow Ohio. That's the way our family business thinks. That's what you'd be electing with Vitale. Thank you.
We follow instructions. I sat on the Community Improvement Corporation here in Logan County. I was part of one of the founding members, and its job is job retention and job creation. And so we hear from the local industry of what they need. They need three things. They need us to reduce taxes on a state level. They need us to do regulatory reform, and they need us to provide a trained workforce. You're hearing a lot of the same stuff here, so it must be true. In Logan County, we have taken some steps. We've used some of the workforce development monies. Indian Lake High School is doing a program on soft skills. Soft skills mean that you just know how to show up for work on time. You know how to come back the next morning. You know how to stay the whole day. And you know how to be clean and sober when you get there. We had some training about drugs because I was the family court judge. And drugs are rampant in the community. Midwest Express says that when they hire somebody new, they recruit 30 people for the class. They lose a third of them by noon. They lose another third of them by the second day of the class. If they can recruit 2 or 3 people out of 30, that's a really good day for them. So we've got to do a much better job on our workforce training. Right here in the building that we stand in, this is a great opportunity for workforce training. This institution has gone out and created satellite training in every school in the district, and there are 24,000 students in the district that this school affects. There are 1,700 that are in the junior and senior year. Approximately 600, 700 students attend this school. We need to do a better job in directing state funds to the educational component of advanced skills and training that our workforce needs today. So reduce taxes, regulatory reform, and a trained workforce. That's what we need to create jobs and retain jobs in Ohio.
What is your opinion on public education? Discuss what level of funding you think education should receive from the state and the role of private and charter schools versus public schools in the state of Ohio.
I have 5 boys. It's interesting at our house. My wife would probably tell you 6. What I've learned from being a parent is that each one of them learns totally different. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to any of the 5 kids that are in my school or in my family. I have a sister who's a public school teacher, and she tells me the exact same thing. She has 25 kids in her class, and she can usually divide them up maybe into 4 groups, but she has 25 kids in her class, and they're all individuals, just like my 5 kids are individuals. I believe that the free market is the best way to educate our kids. I think every level of schooling, whether it be public school, private schools, Christian schools, home schools, they all should be available for one reason. Because you as parents and grandparents know your children. I don't know your kids. I know my kids, and I know how each one of them learns, and each one of them is different and unique. But I believe in school choice and school freedom. I'm totally against Common Core. Our focus really needs to start being on the child, not on the structure. If we have one chance to educate a child, most of the experts will tell you it's between 4 and 12. That's a very critical phase. They call it the parrot phase in there. And kids can learn a lot. And, you know, one thing you'll hear is a lot of similar things, but unfortunately, if you haven't seen, there's a third party that has surveyed all of us to help you make a good decision. And in question 12 of that survey, Judge Chamberlain answered the question that he doesn't believe in school freedom. He believes in school monopolies. And I don't think that's a good conservative position to take, and I don't think it's right. So I believe in school choice. I believe all levels of schooling should be strongly funded, and parents are the primary educators of their children. Thank you.
Thank goodness we live in a country that you can have the opportunity to educate your children the way you want. We have some great public schools in this district, in this community. We don't have any charter schools in this district. We have some great parochial schools and a great Christian school right here in this community. The question here is, if we're going to have charter schools, should they have to live up to the same standard that we require of our public schools? And that's really what this is about. It's not about being able to just pull your dollars out and do what you want to do with those dollars, wherever you want to go, wherever you want to educate your children. The strength of this country depends on an educated populace. That's the reason we guarantee a public education in the Constitution of the state of Ohio and in the U.S. Constitution. So if you're going to have a good, strong public school, I believe in the public school system. I was educated in the public school system. My wife was. My children were. My grandchildren attend the Ben Logan School over here. If we're going to fund charter schools with public money, they have to be accountable in the same fashion that the public schools do. Otherwise, you're going to give them money, they're going to go bankrupt, belly up, and we're going to still, as the public, be left holding the bag and paying for that education. I'm not sure of the question that was asked here, but if you take a look at the survey, it describes me as a somewhat liberal person. I can't imagine, having been elected 3 times as a conservative Republican in this community, how I became a somewhat liberal person. But please read that survey and read all the answers to the questions and how each of us responded to those questions. I think what you'll find is that I agreed on almost everything in there. Maybe 3 questions we differed on. One of them had to do with if you had a divorce case and you had children in it, would I agree to a moratorium for a year? I would not, because I'm a judge and I know what the impact is on the children in those cases. Take a look at all of that stuff. Thank you.
So, the question's about education funding, how we educate, and I, as you know, have been an advocate of these types of things, or how to improve education for a long time, its impact on the overall economy and the future for our kids. I think that one thing I'm very, very pleased about is that through the course of this campaign, I'm very pleased that many of my ideas I feel very confident will be implemented, because I see that my opposition in this primary are beginning to agree and duplicate many of the ideas I've been talking about for years now. So I want to tell you kind of how I started this. When I was in high school, and this is where my passion began, I struggled very, very, very badly for a while. Very badly. And I'm not too proud to admit that. But I found vocational education. And I'm not saying that's right for every kid. But what I'm also saying is traditional college prep type standardized testing education isn't right for every kid either. So that's why we need to repeal Common Core. But I'm not just talking about that. I'm talking about a better program, a better plan. As far as funding goes, right now we have tiers, a tiered system of how we fund schools. And that's just plain wrong. It's unfair that per capita other communities get so much more funding than here in Logan County, in Champaign County, in Shelby County. The funding must absolutely and completely be based on per student per capita amount. And how we fix the problem is we allow those students the freedom and those parents to take that money with them. If they choose a charter school, if they choose homeschooling, if they choose a Christian school, if they choose a private school, they should have the right to take their fair per capita share of the state funding with them to the school education of their choice. And that is what I've been fighting for years, and I will continue to fight for that, because it will create a stronger Ohio and a better future. Thank you.
The legislature has recently passed several laws regulating abortion procedures that make Ohio among the most restrictive states in the nation to have an abortion. What is your opinion on the abortion issue in any situation, and what sort of additional regulations would you like to see?
Well, you know, we have, this will be the 7th public appearance with these candidates. I don't think you're going to hear much new from anybody. Probably they polish it up a little bit, but I've consistently indicated that I'm a pro-life individual. I served as a judge making orders that protected even unborn children. We issued protection orders for unborn children and elderly all the way through the entire gamut of the family. So the sanctity of human life, all life, is important to me. There's a bill currently pending that hasn't passed yet, and I'd like to see the opportunity for that to come through. That's the heartbeat bill. The reason it hasn't passed is because there are two components to that bill. The first is what they call the informed consent, and that means that if there's a heartbeat, that there's an obligation that the mother be given the opportunity to hear the heartbeat, that she know that it exists. The second part of that bill says that if there is a heartbeat, that they cannot proceed with the abortion. That is what creates a complication for that particular bill, because everybody agrees, even the pro-life folks agree, that if that's in there, that it will be a constitutional challenge the minute the governor signs it. The informed consent portion has been demonstrated in other states to have reduced abortion numbers by up to 70%. So it's important that it get passed and that it get in place so that it can have that kind of an impact. If we tie it together with the second portion, it will, even if passed, it will not be put into place until the appeals are run. There's also a concern that an appeal of a total heartbeat bill would set the wrong kind of a standard out there. So we've done a lot of good things. We've made Ohio more restrictive for abortion, but we've got to do it in a constitutional fashion. The first portion of the heartbeat bill should be passed. The second portion should be passed, but as a second, separate piece of legislation. Thank you.
So, during the course of this debate, I seem to have gotten in this strange habit of telling stories of things from some time ago, so I'll continue with that. One of the first things I did when I began to become politically active was, as a kid, I marched in a pro-life demonstration for the protection of life with my father. And all the way through that time, I had been dedicated to protecting the right to life. And not only that, but I've worked very, very hard on that issue. I have done things like circulated petitions in support of what's called the painless petition. It deals with federal regulation and protecting the constitutional right to life. And during the entire time of that span, I've worked hard on many pro-life causes, issues, and I've always worked to support pro-life candidates, even to the point where it wasn't always to the liking of party leadership. There were times when I was willing to challenge party leadership when they put pressure on me, because to me, the constitutional right to life is not negotiable. So I was willing to take a stand and say, no, I think the party needs to be firm on this issue. And as I've said, I've proven several times in several ways how dedicated to this issue I am, and I will absolutely continue to do all I can to stop abortions and protect the constitutional right to life. Thank you.
I guess I have a question for you all, which is, how do you know? You've got 3 folks up here, and how do you know they're going to do what they say when they get into office? And the best way I can answer this question for you is, right now I'm actively fundraising to bring an ultrasound to our community. I have spent most of the last 10 years fundraising and having events and putting up pro-life signs and doing chastity literature drops on college campuses. Pro-life is extremely close to me. It is fundamentally who I am. For me, it's very clear. Life begins at conception and ends at natural death. That's my stance on it. And the reason I believe that, honestly, is the good Lord said in the book of Joshua, I knew you before I formed you in the womb. So in his opinion, life actually started prior to that. And that's how I live that. Secondly, I guess I disagree with Mr. Chamberlain. I'm one of the folks who's worked statewide. I'm the only one who's endorsed by Ohio Right to Life. And the entire purpose behind the heartbeat bill is so that it does get challenged. It's been written and designed to make it all the way to Roe and challenge Roe. And there's 2 approaches that we have in the life movement. The first one is challenge Roe and take that scar off of our U.S. Constitution. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What good is health care if you're not here? What good am I as an NRA instructor if you're not here and your Second Amendment rights? And the second thing that I've really spent most of my time on is celebrating life. If you look on my website, you'll see lots of pictures of billboards that I've designed. What we need to do is celebrate life and family, not redefine life and family. Thank you.
That's right.
All right, we'll have closing remarks, and Mr. Luckey, you can start.
So, as I alluded to a bit earlier, I've been pretty passionate about fighting for a lot of these key issues. And I've done it when it was hard, I've done it when it was easy. Some of the things I've done include in 2008, when I was delegate to the Republican National Convention, I represented all of us here in West Central Ohio, at 11 county area, and I worked hard. And I've proven who I am. I've proven that I'm willing to challenge party leadership. That's not always easy when you fast forward a few years later and you're in the midst of a campaign and you have party leaders that you weren't afraid to challenge when they weren't being conservative enough. But I'm proud of that, and I wouldn't change that. And there are several examples when I've done similar things, when we had a corrupt elected official in my home county, where I was part of the committee and the executive board that called for the resignation of a Republican elected official. Why? Because he was corrupt and doing the wrong things. So that's really the kind of leader you need. One that has proven who they are as a conservative. And not only that, but proven who they are in business, by creating business, by building business from the ground up, by helping others. During my many, many, many years in business, I was a part of groups like the Christian Business Network. And through time away from my family, time away from my business and my ability to make money, I promoted a work environment that was Christian-based. Through time away from my business and my family and my church and other organizations, I spent time out there knocking on doors, working hard to help good conservatives get elected. I've been appreciated and awarded by many people. So I've got the proven work ethic. And I want to tell you, I want this great opportunity for my kids to have what they had in their life. We've worked so hard in Ohio for what we have, and we should be able to hold on to that and keep that. You've worked hard for what you have, whether it's your taxes or your principles or your Christian rights. You should be able to hold on to that, and that's what I'm fighting for. And I've fought so hard for it, and I know that we can have a better and stronger Ohio. And I ask you to please consider me and give me your vote. I will work very, very hard, as I have done with everything I've done, and I will work to the point of exhaustion to serve you. Thank you.
Well, I guess I go back to the question, how do you know? And all I ask you to do is look at my record. I'm an NRA instructor. My son's one of the youngest in Ohio. I've been working in the pro-life movement for almost 10 years. We have a family business, and we've got 300 Ohioans working with us, and that's very important to keep that business here and understand how it affects job growth and opportunities for everyone. And lastly, as I kind of got said at the end there, we ended up with a $9.7 million bill that we were facing, and we don't make that kind of money. And it was the penalties we would have to pay if we didn't want to support Obamacare and pay for abortion-inducing drugs. So we're one of the 42 private businesses that's suing Obamacare in this country. And it's not a very fun thing to have to stand up to your federal government and sue it. But we feel it's a religious liberty issue, and we want to do what's right. So that's I guess, what you're getting if you decide to vote Vitale. I'm also endorsed by 12 statewide organizations that I'd ask you to consider, many of which you probably in this room belong to. Citizens for Community Values, Family First, Conservative Republican Leadership Committee, mentioned Ohio Right to Life, Ohio Gun PAC, Buckeye Firearms, and there's more. These are the folks who get things done in Ohio. Mr. Chamberlain mentioned this survey, and I would ask you all to go look at it as well. And I think the reason that I was labeled conservative and Mr. Chamberlain was labeled somewhat liberal is because of these questions. Number 4, efforts to bring Islamic Sharia law to America do not pose a threat to our country and its Constitution. Vitale, strongly disagree. Chamberlain, neutral. I'm not neutral on Islamic law. There should be a strict constitutional spending limit for state and local governments that would tie the rate of spending to the rate of population growth. Vitale, agreed. Judge Chamberlain, no answer. And the one that's most concerning to me as a voter, number 15, religious freedom is our most foundational freedom and deserve added protection. Vitale, strongly agree. Judge Chamberlain, neutral. So please consider voting for the conservative, Nino Vitale. Thank you.
You know, I like that question. How do you know what the candidate's going to do once elected? I've heard this a couple of times now. This is our 7th appearance together. And I know that it's not the campaign rhetoric. It's not what we stand up here and say. It's not what the polls say. It's not what the supporters say, whether they get it right or they don't get it right. A couple of supporters out there are saying that there's only one candidate endorsed by the Buckeye Firearms Association. I have also been endorsed by the Buckeye Firearms Association. I'm also an AQ rating with the NRA. So you really need to take a look at all the facts, but more importantly, what do you really got to depend on? It's the demonstrated history. And my demonstrated history is I'm a lifelong resident of the community, not only Logan County, but Champaign County and Shelby County. I've worked in all 3 of those communities. I've worked right alongside all of you in creating jobs in this community. The 2 Honda plants that we talked about, Honda Russell's Point, Honda East Liberty, those were jobs that I was involved in as both an elected official and as a private individual. We were involved in the Lowe's shopping center project on the south end of town, the Bob Evans project, a $10 million airport expansion project. The hospital, we went from a governmental hospital to a not-for-profit. We are now in the top 10% in the country. It's the 3rd largest employer in the community. We have done all of these things. At the same time, I had the opportunity to serve you in a public capacity as your prosecutor, protecting families and children throughout the county. I served as a guardian ad litem before the court. I served as a GAL for children because I found that the children needed it most. Mom and dads were being absolute idiots, and I couldn't tolerate that anymore, and so I served in that capacity. I served as a family court judge, and we issued orders protecting life from unborn stages all the way through the elderly. Elderly is an issue that we'd appreciate your vote. May the 6th. Thank you.
attending tonight's debate, obviously the Bellefontaine Examiner and the Logan County chapter of the AAUW, and we appreciate you coming. Thank you.